Hello, Susan Flory here with The Big Middle, my free range podcast about life in all its messy glory in the bigger middle. What, pray tell, is messier and more glorious than sex? I've got someone who's going to answer that right off the bat. It is Sam Evans, Sam Talks Sex on the socials. What would you say to that as your first question, Sam?
Well, why wouldn't you love it? Sex is meant to be noisy, messy, embarrassing, consensual, pleasurable, and most of all, fun. So many people really, really enjoy sex, but a lot of people don't enjoy it for various reasons. So, it's so good for your physical and mental well-being too. So, that's why I love sex.
Yeah, and you never tire of talking about it, do you? Because
Not at
you are
all.
so active on the socials and you are a sex educator. I mean, you have a terrific public health role on the social media at Sam Talk Sex Again. And also, you've got a company. You're trying to normalize sexual pleasure as well as guide people toward all of the touchstones of sexual health, especially during the big middle years. I mean, it's across the age spectrum, but especially the big middle years. Now, you run a company called Joe Divine, and that's all to do with sexual pleasure. Tell me about that.
So Joe Divine, my husband and I set it up in 2007, and it's a sex toy company. We only sell skin-safe sex toys and irritant-free sexual lubricants. And we are passionate about people's intimate health and sexual pleasure, which is why we will not sell products that are widely available elsewhere. And for me, it is about normalizing sex. Our customer base is 18 to 93. So hashtag you're never too old to enjoy a sex
Absolutely.
toy. But for me, it's educating people about their intimate health and sexual pleasure and using products that aren't going to cause problems or do harm or exacerbate the issues that you actually have. So our website goes from kink and Joe Divine's secret diary, which is a lovely erotic read, up right up to sex and cancer, because nobody is missed out. It's inclusive. Everybody is included. It doesn't matter who you are, whatever your age, your disability, your gender, your sexual orientation, your health issue. If you want to carry on enjoying sex or, just enjoy better sex, then you
Yeah.
can actually do it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to dig into all of that, all those layers. Your expertise, it's well known. You've been on all the talk shows. You write wonderful articles. And on your website, Joe Divine, is it .co.uk or .com?
.com.
.com, loads of health information. And you are a former nurse.
Yeah.
When did you make this transition from being a renal and public health, no, occupational health nurse,
Yeah.
right? When did you make that transition to running your company full time and giving out all of this wonderfully rich information about enjoying sexual health, coupled with the pleasurable side of it?
Um, been a nurse for over 20 years. So I gave up nursing when we moved to New York, and we then had our daughter there, and then we came back and then had another child 2 years later, and then had another child 2 years later, our sons. And I tried to go back to nursing because I loved occupational health. It's sort of health promotion. It's actually preventative medicine. The NHS is often very reactive rather than proactive. And actually, I think if you can prevent things from happening, that's far better than trying to treat stuff. But it was no, but I was raising the children, and we set up the company, and I started to grow a bit of interest, and then I started writing the articles thinking, well, what can I do, realizing that customers were buying some of our toys to help them overcome sexual health issues. Then I decided to explore what information was there available in the NHS and on cancer websites to help people regain their sexual function and reclaim their sexual sex lives. And there was very little. It was very generic. Often the lubricants recommended were very, very poor. They were irritating, and it just the way in which it was written. So I started writing really practical sexual health and pleasure articles, giving advice and tips and signposting people to psychosexual therapists that we work with and pelvic health physios and menopause experts and genital dermatology clinics, working with a lot of healthcare professionals too, because it wasn't just a fact of buying your tube of lube, but it was to give it a holistic approach. The fact is, a bit of this might help and a bit of this might help, to actually help people overcome sexual health issues. And personally, I'd had a sexual health issue in my 20s and 30s, and it wasn't until we set up the company that I really started to realize that light bulb moment went on. I'm thinking, oh, that is the reason why that happened.
Well, you've been
And
very
now,
open about it. You said you had vaginismus and your husband had some issues too. What is the difference between vaginosis and vaginismus?
okay, well, bacterial vaginosis is a bacterial infection, so it's to do with disruption in the vagina pH, and you need antibiotics for that. It's got a fishy smelling smell. But vaginismus is actually the involuntary contraction of your pelvic floor muscles. So it can happen for a variety of reasons. Obviously, people who've been through sexual trauma, sometimes when they've been through surgical intervention, if it's, if having a rough partner, if you've had, you know, numerous infections, which was my issue. So in my 20s and 30s, constantly had recurrent thrush, bacterial vaginosis, cystitis, urinary tract infections, constantly at the doctors because you couldn't get Canesten over the counter then, you had to have it on prescription. And then that led to vaginismus because every time we had sex, I'd be thinking, am I going to be up all night on the Lou cystitis? Am I going to be scratching tomorrow, itching tomorrow at work on the ward because I've got thrush? Am I going to have to treat myself? And so basically, I think subconsciously it was my body trying to protect myself. I
Mhm.
I trained as a nurse. I finally got diagnosed at 30. I was offered some stress management. Nobody during the course of my recurrent infections ever asked me about my sex life, ever asked me even what was I washing, myself with, what was I washing my knickers in. Nobody asked me about sexual lubricants or the type of sex play I was enjoying, which was normal heterosexual, penetrative sex. I wasn't doing anything that was actually causing these infections. And I realized when we set up Joe Divine and decided to sell, an organic sexual lubricant, started using it ourselves within a few days, almost, it was like, no itching. Oh, no, I no cystitis feelings. I realized it was the ingredients in the lubricants we were selling, we were using, well known lubricants, still recommended, still sold widely across, the high street, recommended by doctors. And these ingredients are in the vast majority of sexual lubricants out there, and they cause a lot of problems.
It's quite
So personally,
astonishing that that isn't common knowledge. And I know that even at some of the doctors' surgeries, the offices, a certain lubricant is used when women get their pap smears to test for cervical cancer. And I mean, why are they still using that when you have been campaigning against the use of these ingredients? And you can tell us the ingredients that are problematic.
because they're cheap. It's cheap. This is the thing about it. I mean, the ingredients I'm talking about, glycerin creates a sugary environment inside the vagina, and that is a lovely place for thrush to thrive. And also it makes the formulation of a lubricant very sticky. You then got propylene glycol. That's actually often that causes irritation too, but also you find that in antifreeze. Why on earth it's in our lubricants, I have no idea. But it's often the ingredient that will make it sting. So whether you put it on a vulva, inside a vagina, on an anus or a penis, it will cause stinging. Then you've got parabens, which are preservatives in quite a lot of things. They are weak hormone disruptors. So we really should be avoiding, and they do cause irritation. You've got dyes because you all need a pink vulva. You've got perfumes because we need to, smell like vanilla. We've even got glitter,
Oh my
glittery
word.
vulva anymore.
Yeah,
We'll
I
go
mean, I
down the
don't use
disco,
any of
shall
this
we?
stuff, so I don't even really notice it. And I tell you, it
No.
was a revelation reading some of your blogs and listening to some of the podcasts you've been on because I mean, all this is happening around me and I've not noticed it. I mean, it's like nutrition. I mean, the marketing that goes on, the deception out there, and nobody knows. And then you go to your general practitioner, not to diss doctors, but they don't know either because they're using problematic ingredients when they're giving you your smear test.
Well, and also there are products on prescription that contain irritating ingredients too. And my view is whenever I talk to people, often you'll talk about, oh, we recommend buying a lubricant with our toys, and then you end up talking to them, and then you realize, oh yeah, I'm getting thrush. Oh yeah, I don't, it always stings, and you discover what they're using, and it's something, maybe a supermarket own brand or a chemist own brand or something like that. And I would say to people, if you think about what you eat and put on your skin, why don't you think about what you put on your vulva and inside your vagina and on your penis? Because these are highly sensitive, highly absorbent parts of your body. And your people don't think about it. And also it's not just things that are designed as a lubricant, it's things out of the bathroom and the kitchen cupboard. We've
So, is
heard
there
all
anything that's
sorts.
safe that is on the supermarket shelf before we go to the kitchen cupboard? Is there anything that's safe? You just have to look at the packet, and if it's got, go through the ingredients again parabens, glycol, or glycerol.
Glycerin, glycols, parabens, dyes, glitter, perfume, alcohol.
Any of it, just
Well,
don't buy it.
well, basically, there's some shops do sell the S organic lubricants. We sell Sutil Lux with a UK retailer and distributor. It's a Canadian brand. You know,
Yes, I
these
know
products
that.
contain
From my native
contain
land, Canada.
yeah, and it's fantastic. And these products contain organic and botanical ingredients. What a lot of lubricant brands now are doing, they're catching on to the fact that they're glycerin and parabens. So they're saying, oh, it's glycerin parabens free, but it's still got glycols in it, or it's still got dyes or perfumes. And also, we have other things, you know, the perfume menstrual pads, the scented condoms.
Yeah.
You know, and also my frustration, I mean, the whole internet hygiene industry is completely out of control in the UK, and I know, you know, sort of in America as well. So people have an irritation, they'll grab a wash off the shelf, or they'll grab some cream that they've seen the doctor advertise on telly, or that doctor on Instagram, she was promoting that wash, that must be fine. And then they'll use it, and maybe their symptoms will sort of go away for a few days, but then they'll probably come back, or it may exacerbate the symptoms, or even mask symptoms that they need to go and see their GP to be checked, because there are genital skin conditions that really need to be checked, like lichen sclerosis, because there is a potential there that can actually turn into vulval cancer. So, you know, this is really, really important. So I
So
spent a lot of
if
my
you put
time
it on and you've got something and it's stinging you, the man or the
washing it
woman,
off.
yeah, wash it off immediately with water, only with water.
And only wash with water. We don't need these washes. You know, we don't need products. The intimate hygiene industry was created for a problem that never existed. Our smelly vaginas. You know, you can't wash your vagina. You know, where are all the penis washes? Oh, they don't exist. You know, you're actually marketing to, you know, vulnerable people. You're actually, you know, just you're actually perpetuating the myths that our vaginas smell, and they have a natural smell. That's how they're meant to smell. And if the smell isn't great, then it might indicate there's actually a problem like bacterial vaginosis. But
Yeah, and it
why
can be
is
passed
thrush?
between partners if you're having penetrative sex. I mean,
Yeah,
men need to be aware of all of this as well. Do not buy the perfumed condoms and look out for the ingredients, because that's going to bite you as well as your partner who may be
definitely.
having
And
all
we're
kinds
hearing
of
more
issues.
or more men who are irritated by condoms. A lot of people think they have a latex allergy when they're actually having irritation from the ingredients in the lube on the condom. So, you know, this is really important. I say to people, become an ingredients detective. The problem is you get into a cycle like I did. You use the lube, you get thrush, you use the thrush treatment, you get treated, it goes away, you go back to using the lube. It's like a vicious cycle. And often some of these lube brands have now brought out their own thrush and bacterial vaginosis treatment. So you're in a vicious cycle of using their products all the time, and you never break out of it. And it's not until you have a problem that you sort of go, what's going on? Don't get me wrong, there are people out there with cast iron vaginas. They could use anything.
Yeah,
They're never
yeah,
going to get
exactly.
thrush. You know, for me, bath bombs, I call them thrush bombs, but I've got people going, oh, I never have a problem. Well, that's fine. But, you know,
I
I
can't
just,
even go into those shops because I have
oh,
a hypoallergenic reaction instantly. I,
yeah.
I
So,
can't I can't even go in because I will be irritated. There's a histamine factor going on, and I just have to walk out. I can't even really go through in a
but
department
if
store, the
that's
perfume
affecting you,
counter.
you know, your nasal passages, imagine what it's going to do to the delicate tissues of your vulva and vagina. You know, for me, I just find it what people are doing, because people don't even think. But, you know, the other thing, you know, things out of your kitchen and bathroom cupboard, you know, we hear so much, you know, baby oil, Vaseline, you know, olive oil, I mean, coconut oil. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's like Marmite. It can cause thrush. And you know, but we hear about Germaline and Sudocrem and hand cream and body lotion, and you go, just because it's slippery doesn't mean you can use it as a lubricant. So, and medical professionals telling patients to use these products too.
I
There
know
is
that.
no thought.
No, no, there's no thought, there's no joined up thinking, there's no, I mean, the NHS is moving toward prevention more than sick care and body parts, but it's going to take probably beyond our lifetimes to get them fully there. But that's why the articles that you put out and the public health campaigning that you do, the sexual health campaigning, is so fantastic because you don't mince words and you cover the gamut of issues. I want to talk about perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. What do you recommend? I know you're known as the lube queen and you've got all the safe products, but for most women, I did a little canvas of my friends, men and women, and never mind what all the men said, but all the women said they got to a point, perimenopausal years after about 40, 42, different for each of them, where having sex was so painful. Tell us what's happening with the vagina then.
So basically, when you enter perimenopause, and I think I entered mine when I was about 40, your estrogen levels start to deplete. So you need estrogen to keep your whole genitourinary system happy and healthy. So I'm talking about your vulva, your vagina, your urethra, and your bladder. So the issue happens and people end up with vaginal dryness because the estrogen keeps it happy and healthy, it keeps it lubricated, it keeps it flexible. And so obviously you go to have penetrative sex or other sex play, and then that can feel painful and you're not lubricated, you're not producing your own natural lubrication as much as you used to. Also, people get urethral irritation, so that sort of cystitis feeling, and they get bladder irritation and they end up with, urinary tract infections. So estrogen is so important to our genitourinary system to keep it happy and healthy, and that actually is what's happening. So the first thing, what do people do? They go and buy a lube off the shelf in the supermarket and they use it, and then it might sting. And often these products can also sting if your pH is out of kilter inside your vagina. So you've got this pH that you need to keep in balance inside your vagina. Also, they sting because of the ingredients. And so people actually often have a bad experience using a lubricant, or they don't know that actually all lubes, not all lubes are the same. And then it puts them off. So then they don't use lube and they carry on having, unlubricated sex.
Well, the other thing is, though, a lot of men, it's a badge of dishonor if you can't make your partner as wet as practicable for the highest impact pleasure. There is this attitude that's it's not their fault, but society,
it's
virility. You must be
it's a
able
myth.
to make your partner come
Yeah,
immediately.
exactly. And also women think that too. They think there's something wrong with them and they're thinking they're not getting aroused. But actually I can be completely nutty aroused, but nothing's happening until I pop a bit of Sutil on. That gets me going. But it is this myth, and this doesn't matter what your age is, because your natural lubrication is impacted upon, stress, anxiety, breastfeeding, obviously menopause, cancer, medication. So obviously sexual side effects to antidepressants and other medications, but also antihistamines. So hay fever season, they antihistamines dry up mucosal secretions. So it doesn't just mean in your nose, it means in your vagina too.
Oh,
So I
wow.
say to people, if you're taking regular antihistamines, not just for hay fever, I take one for itchy skin in menopause, and it's very strong. But I say to people, if you're taking an antihistamine, then you probably need to use a good sexual lubricant too. But breastfeeding, I don't think many midwives are actually telling these new mums that, if you're breastfeeding, that impacts upon your natural lubrication. So when you go back to having sex, then really it's important that you use a good lubricant, and not the well-known lubes that are out there, or olive oil that some of them are recommending. So, you know,
I
this
love
myth.
geeking out on the science. So what's happening with when you breastfeed? What's going on there
So
that would
again,
cause
it's to
that?
do with the estrogen, and so the estrogen levels drop, and so if you're breastfeeding, then again it impacts upon the estrogen levels, impact upon your vagina and the tissues of the vagina. I mean, even some women breastfeeding can end up with vaginal atrophy, which is actually something that it happens in menopause. That is something where the tissues of the vagina really, really shrink and they split and they become less well lubricated. And some people even can't sit down, but that can happen to women who are breastfeeding too. People who
Gosh.
breastfeed, it's not, so this is why, you know, we have to dispel this myth. And this whole thing of, somebody called it the hierarchy of wetness, which I thought was a fabulous term. And it was like, so I've had people when I say to them, oh, let me recommend a lubricant when they're buying a sex. I don't need that, because it's almost like you're accusing the fact that you're not getting lubricated, you're not getting wet. And quite frankly, owning a sex toy company that sells really good sexual lubricants that are amazing, then we know that wetter is better, and actually using a good lube, whether you get wet or not, transforms your sexual pleasure.
Well,
So
there's two great lines there: hierarchy of wetness and wetter is better. There you go. And what's amazing is too, I know that you only recently discovered your G spot. I mean, you expose so much of yourself, and it's wonderful because my girlfriends and I, even my guy friends and I, we talk about sex openly. I mean, nothing is off limits, but yet so many people, different cultures, different ages, um, they just get so prudish, so squeamish. I mean, I was reading an article the other day about the pilgrims, because the Americans, as you know, are so much more prudish. I've lived in France a couple of times and Switzerland, and in Switzerland they have drive-by prostitute shacks. I mean, which is not great. It's horrific, really. Now we won't go into that, but there's an openness and a normalization about sex. You eat, you have sex, you go to the loo in the morning. I mean, it's a bodily function, and then there is the pleasure built into it. But in since Victorian times and since the Pilgrims, I mean, it was the Pilgrims who actually had people grab a sheet to protect
Oh yes.
themselves from their own nudity when
Body,
they were
yeah,
having a bath. I
yeah.
mean, it's extraordinary. So you're helping take us the rest of the way. So I want to ask you about your G spot, how you found that, because sex toys are not in everyone's bedside nightstand cupboard.
No, so obviously I'm very lucky that we have access to our, it's a curated range of sex toys, so we get sent stuff that we would never sell. As I said, we only sell the skin safe products, so nothing made from jelly, latex or rubber, because they're porous materials. You can't clean them, they absorb bacteria, they leach out chemicals, they degrade over time, they just are very, very poor products. So it was just a toy. I remember thinking maybe that I'd had a G-spot orgasm many, many years ago, maybe when Paul was, we were having sex together, but I didn't really know what it was. And I remember we had somebody working with us. She says, "Oh, she says, you'll know when you have a G-spot orgasm." She was in her 20s. I'm going, I'm here in my 40s, and I certainly don't know, and I don't think I've had one. Use this toy. And I remember thinking at the time, that feels very difficult. That's not a clitoral orgasm. It felt very, very different. And then I realized that my G spot is way back yonder. My G spot is up near my cervix. So really almost like an A spot. That's the anterior fornix. So it's, petite, deep, but the whole G spot thing really is, people think, oh, it's this one spot inside the vagina, but our G spots are all in different places. And actually, really, ultimately, is, and I haven't brought it, but the structure of the clitoris is almost like a wishbone, so it goes around the vagina. And actually, what's being stimulated is the tissue of the clitoris through the wall of the vagina. But some people, I've obviously got quite a sensitive cervix, and so I can enjoy having a G spot orgasm or an A spot orgasm. Some people don't obviously want their cervix to be touched, and obviously it can be painful during penetrative sex if
Yeah,
you
we're
deep
all such
penetration, it hits it.
individual. We're individuals,
Yeah.
just as with
So,
nutrition. I mean, with sex and body parts and where things sit. But a lot of it, I imagine that you have a lot of very raw conversations. A lot of information is exchanged because I know you take the calls of your customers, 18 to 93. They tell you their stories. Um, Communication is absolutely paramount when you're having sex with anyone, new partner, old partner. And do you find that you could identify that as being the overwhelming problem? Why people get into these difficulties about not exploring one another's bodies instead of just, 7 minutes later it's over?
I think there's partly that. I mean, communication is key. And I will be honest, I didn't tell Paul that I was experiencing painful sex when I had vaginismus, and he was very upset about it. But we were talking about it the other day, and I said, if we'd have actually known what it was, we could have done other stuff rather than me sort of retreating into myself. And it impacted upon him because, often, partners with a penis, if they think they're going to hurt you, they're going to lose their erection. And this isn't just about vaginismus. This is about people going through menopause, cancer, post-cancer treatment, post-childbirth. It does impact upon partners, and so the two of you are affected. But communication is really key. But often I'm helping people who've also had a good sex life. Something's happened, they've hit midlife, or they've had a baby, or they've gone through cancer treatment, or they're in a new relationship and sex is different with this new partner, and actually they want to get back to enjoying that pleasurable sex. That is another issue that I talk to people about, this communication key. I mean, I remember one example, one lady phoned and said, can I have a completely silent vibrator that I can use in bed next to my husband while he's asleep? And I said, well, yeah, a lot of our vibrators are quiet. I can't say there's a silent one, but actually, would it not be better to have a conversation with your husband? But
Yeah,
there are a
culturally,
lot of,
though, I think with different cultures, that can be very
yeah.
difficult because,
And
as you know, there are these alpha males that just, we know marital sex sometimes can just be roll on, roll off, that sort of a
boring.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it has all of its moments. But there are some partners who just wouldn't have it. The woman or the man has to hide whatever starter toy that they might want to use to
Yeah.
explore
And
other
actually,
sensations.
I agree. And also, obviously, we've got a lot of people going off and using the toys on their own. And I would say to him, we even have people struggling to get the partner to allow them to use the lubricant, So I think that is quite sad, because why would you not want your partner to use something that's going to make sex feel pleasurable and probably last longer for you, be pleasurable for both of you? But also, I think also there is a little bit of a myth that, men don't want women to have sex toys and they feel threatened by their dildos and whatever. You're not whipping out a great big 6-inch dildo. You're bringing out maybe your little tiny bullet vibrator, which is fabulous. You use that on a penis as well, up and down the shaft. So, partners, we have male partners buying toys for their partners, and do you know what? We rarely get them returned. The one I do remember, it was for a wedding anniversary present, and he was really lovely on the phone, but he said, I've got to return it. I think somebody did return a Christmas present this year. She didn't want it. It was an unwanted present, which is why I always say to people, do talk to your partner about this. Don't
Yes.
just go and buy something, and make sure it's something suitable, which is why, because we talk to people, we've got all the advice on the website, we get very few returns of toys that are not wanted. I mean, we get very few returns anyway of toys that are faulty. So, the vast majority of the time, people actually aren't using them properly, or they haven't got the batteries in the right way, or they haven't done the lock. But I think, when couples can play together, we love it when we never hear this conversation. We always hear about the sad menopausal woman sitting on the end of the bed, because she can't have sex, or she's got a dry vagina, or she's got low libido. We have a lot of midlife women buying a sex toy for themselves because their partner has erectile difficulties. Now,
Yes.
we never ever hear that conversation. And we always say to those women, well, obviously, hopefully your partner has been to see his GP, because that's really, really important, because there could be, more serious underlying cause like heart disease or diabetes or prostate health issues. Or generally, often, most of the time, it's stress. And look at the last 2 years, it's very stressful. So, this is a conversation that we never actually have as well. These women who are actually buying these toys because their partner's unable to get an erection that's suitable for penetrative sex, or all sex play, whatever they want to do. Because obviously, I feel like here we're talking, it always seems to be about penetrative sex, but people do all sorts of things. Not everybody has penetrative sex, and
No,
enjoys sex in so
absolutely.
many different ways.
Well,
So,
let's explore some of those, but let's go back to the menopausal, because it's a big middle, and this is, sort of,
mm,
I've defined it as it seems to be growing all the time, and I try not to get too age specific, but the big middle, sort of mid 40s, mid
mm,
70s, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, the vaginal atrophy, even if you're on systemic body identical hormone replacement therapy, can still be happening. I'll just put my hand up. It can still be happening. So, what do you recommend for that?
well, obviously, there's local estrogen. So, this is the little pessaries that you put inside your vagina with a little applicator like that. I use my pessaries 3 times a week. So that's actually just delivering the estrogen directly to the walls of the vagina, the vulva, the bladder, and the urethra. I
And
mean, that has been
transformative. Did you find it transformative?
transformative. But for me, I would say to people, have an intimate regime. So please only wash with water. You do not need to be washing anything perfume stuff, and gently pat it dry with the towel. Just gently wash with water. If you can use local estrogen, because some people aren't able to use it, but the vast majority of people can. Some people are too frightened to use it because the information in the packaging is completely incorrect. It relates to systemic HRT. Use a good vaginal moisturizer. People, I say, well, how much are you spending on your creme de la mer? Well, can you not afford to spend a tenner on your tube of vaginal moisturizer then? So you need to moisturize your vulva and your vagina. And I do it twice a week. I pop a bit of the Yes vaginal moisturizer up, but also Sutil, which is a lubricant, can also be used as a vaginal moisturizer.
So you
Um,
need, just like your makeup bag, you need a
yeah,
sex health bag.
yeah, which I've posted that. I'm always saying this intimate regime. If you're doing this to your face and body every night, then you need to be doing it. So 3 times a week I'm popping up a pessary. Twice a week I'm using vaginal moisturizer, and then any sex play I'm using Sutil, and I only wash with water, and that has always been the way. So, and then make sure you invest in a good sexual lubricant if you're having whatever sex play, be that on your own, with sex toy, with a partner, whatever form of sex play you're enjoying, then make sure you invest in a good sexual lubricant. So these things can really, really help. And obviously, then sex toys can help too. So, we have a health brochure should be created that in the NHS with our local
Yes.
hospital. It's just being upgraded at the moment because we've got lots of fabulous new products going. But
Is that
it's got
fully accessible? Any doctor in any
no,
surgery
they have to
can get
contact us,
that,
and
or?
it's not given out, unless people contact us. And it's often people will have picked it up maybe at a conference, or a physio might have been handing them out, or it might have been in a menopause clinic. So basically, it's got slim sex toys in it, it's got clitoral stimulators. These things can actually help with vaginal tightness, so it helps with people overcome that penetrative sex. But we're not just talking about penetrative sex, we're talking about having a viable vagina, so you can go and have your cervical screening test, that you can go and have your pelvic examination, and you're not going to be in so much pain this is, I always say to people as well, take your own water-based lube to your screening test, because we talked about lubes that are recommended in the NHS. But clitoral stimulators, that one looks like a pebble, it's got a squidgy tip.
And that can be used on other body parts on your
Oh,
partner as well.
totally.
I mean,
Well,
there are no rules to any of this. It's just consensual sex, and you try to use skin-safe products, which you provide, and all of your many articles on your website, you talk about all of this. So for men as well, I mean, we always think just about men masturbating, and yet a lot of women won't admit to it. And if anyone who's babysat a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old knows that little girls tend to masturbate very early on in their lives, and they don't know what they're doing, but you can watch them before you put them to bed, and you go, oh, she's giving
yeah,
herself some sexual pleasure.
yeah.
And the little boys as well. So we've got to quit being so prudish about it and realize that these things, I mean, that pebble that you just held up, that can be used on a partner's nipples or any bodily area that feels good depending on the human involved.
And the male toys are amazing. There's some innovations that are out there. Yeah, people saying, they've got a hand. Well, it's not the same as using a sex toy. So this is a male vibrator. It's called a vibrator. So they put their penis in there, and
Oh, wow. Let's see
you know,
that again. I've never seen one
so
of those.
basically it's like a vibrating sleeve. And so let me just show you. The penis will go in there. And
Right.
so basically it can be used with a flaccid or an erect penis. It's great for people who have got erectile problems too, because it can help promote an erection. But you can either just leave it in place or use it with a bit of lube as a masturbator. Because of the
Hmm.
shape of it, it's very ergonomic. It was created from a design of a medical device that was being used for US service and spinal cord injuries.
Oh,
It
wow.
was created in the UK by Adam I was saying that no, I should do who runs the Hot Octopus. But these are really inventive, and they've got innovative, and this has got a vibrating tip, it's remote control. But then you've got things like constriction rings that vibrate. I mean, this one's great because this can be used for nipples and clitorises, and obviously as a constriction ring. I really like that because that gets either side of your clitoris when your partner's wearing it
So
too.
anybody
Yeah,
can call you if they look at your website. Do you have things sort of categorized like starter packs for women, starter packs for men? Or, I mean,
no,
or
no,
can they just
basically,
call you and have a chat
yeah,
about
no, and
what
often
might
people
serve
will arrive.
them?
Yeah, people arrive on the site because they've Googled, I don't know, menopause and sex, and hopefully one of my articles popped up. We get a lot of traffic to the articles on the website, and people will say to me, oh, well, they'll email me, so I've read your article, actually, what do you recommend? Which lubricant will be better for me? And that's fine. I'm always happy to give advice, but I prefer people to call me because I would rather they ended up with a toy that they're actually going to really enjoy. That's something that they open the box and go, oh my goodness, this is too big, or this is completely unsuitable. And that is my frustration when people buy stuff and they actually haven't called for advice. And then they phone, it's just so big. Yeah, well, that's why
Yeah.
it says it's called the big boss. It's like,
Yeah.
or when somebody
Absolutely.
phones up and they say, I want to buy this toy. And I always say to people, this is our biggest toy. Have you used a sex toy before? No. When was the last time you had sex? 20 years ago. So you say, well, actually, I don't think this toy will be suitable, but this toy will be more suitable for you.
Yeah.
But we
The
do
rampant
have,
rabbit that, I mean, now they grow them the size of your forearm. So
I
I
mean,
can
the rampant
imagine
rabbit, the
someone who
world.
hasn't had 20 sex for 20 years it's not really a good choice.
No, and actually the rampant rabbit, thank God it's moved on. We've got beautiful toys now. I mean, this one actually sort of moves as well and does a kind of hither motion. And it, the world has moved on from the rampant rabbit. And thankfully, sex toy materials has moved on. But don't get me wrong, those poor materials still are out there. And also, there are lots of fake and used products as well. That's something to be very wary of
You
when
said
you're going to
used
websites.
products, what you
Used.
can buy
Because
online?
there are lots of test products that are sent out and then they get used and then they get repackaged. But fake products is a big problem, which is why you should come to a sex toy retailer. It's important, like Joe Divine. A sex toy retailer should be able to give you advice. They should, there should be a phone number, there should be an address, should be an email address, not a mobile phone number, or that you have to email them to get any response whatsoever. You should be able to know who these people are, and actually they should be knowledgeable about their products. So this is really important, which is why I'm really passionate about this, because sex toys are sold everywhere, but not all of them are very
Well,
good.
I think your nursing background too gives you, let's face it, greater credibility. Because would you here in the UK, would you have to get a reference to a sexual therapist if you had any concerns about how to use devices for vaginal atrophy at menopause or perimenopause.
No, but you could just no, you don't have to do that. You know, if people need sex therapy, then obviously they can go. I mean, that's another thing as well. A lot of psychosexual therapists aren't aware of the products that are available, which is always surprises me because I think this is your area of of expertise, and why don't you know about these products? But you know, that's why I do the education that we do. But no, people don't. I mean, people are curious, and often people have thought about buying a sex toy. I mean, often people will keep an advert from Good Housekeeping and it'll be 5 years old. And they go, it's taking me 5 years to give you a call, but I'm doing it now. Do you still sell this product? And we go, yeah, we do. Oh, no, we don't. And generally we do. And I think, gosh, you know, I often think, wow, but good for you. It's actually, you've actually plucked up the courage to give me a call.
But again,
And often
it's the
people,
culture we've made. It's
yes,
absolutely ridiculous that we can't own our sexual pleasure. You know, once women are done with thinking, oh, every sexual act has to maybe end in, will I get pregnant? When we're talking
yeah.
post procreative, I mean, are you finding the young people that call you have more open, educated attitudes towards sex? I mean, the 18-year-old who calls you and wants advice about what toys she can use with her partner,
Um,
or two women or two men or three
no,
women and
and
three
not
men.
really. I think again they're looking for the skin safe lubricant. So, you know, again they're trying to educate themselves. But I mean, these sex toys are sold on beauty websites and you know very I mean, on the high street and everything. So they are widely accessible. But even so, I think that even sort of younger people, you know, are maybe still they still need that education. They still need to be educated about their intimate health because often they're often the ones using the washes or
Yes.
the cheap tube of lube that they've grabbed off the counter in the sex shop.
I
You
can't tell
know,
you how
and
many bath bombs I've got at Christmas and I just throw them in the bin. I mean, I can't even go near them because I just would instantly start
well,
sneezing.
if they don't smell too much, you can crumble them up and put them in a bowl and soak your feet. Somebody recommended that to me
Oh,
the other day, but I agree with you. Or put them in a sock and put them in your knicker drawer. But I've got one and I have to put it in a bag. It's with a horrible jelly toy as well. And the two of them together, they absolutely stink. So
oh
yeah,
God.
but you know, people have no idea, and it's weird that light bulb moment when you explain to younger women and men. And they go, I mean, I've actually spoken to quite a few young men at events who've come over and actually asked for lube samples for their girlfriends because their girlfriends are experiencing irritation. And I think, well, that's really proactive, isn't it? And they're actually thinking about, wow, I need to be thinking about, you know, what's happening? Why is it stinging? Why is the lube stinging? Do
Oh,
I
these are
get
the kind of young
infections?
men that we need to be continue to be
Yeah.
creating. I mean, what about you? You've got three children. Two of them are sons, young
Yes.
men,
Yeah.
and I suppose they know everything and they have a great
Um,
open mindset towards sex and sexual health.
I go, Mum, no more sex talk. No. Well, I think we've been open with our children. I mean, you know, it is funny when they came down for tea, and then my daughter would go, "Oh God, there's condoms on this chair." You know, bags, and I've had my youngest son actually. They've all helped pack little goodie bags with condoms and lube samples as well. But they know that we're open, and also now I think you know because our youngest is 18, other one is he's 20 and our daughter's 22. You know, their friends are interested now. They feel like, you know, sort of, can I have some lube samples from my friend? Or you've got some condoms? Or actually, can, you know, my friend wants some advice about a toy. And it's like really nice. I mean, when my daughter was younger, she said a lot of her friends wanted to come and talk to me. And I said, no, I'm sorry, if they're not 18, you know, I can't talk to them about sex if their moms or dads don't want to talk to them about sex.
No, you'd
So,
be opening yourself up to lawsuits if you were in the
yeah,
States,
exactly. So now
and
they're all
here you'd be
18.
marched into the headmistress. Yeah, I mean, there's so much discussion and debate around anything that happens within the confines, past the school gates. So your daughter, I understand, she's taken a path following your lead a little bit as well.
Yeah. So Millie, sort of even from the age of 16, she was always very interested in this area. And then she happened to join the Family Planning Association Youth Committee. And as a result of that, she's now been out and to various countries, Istanbul and Brussels. And she's actually been on sort of, panels to talk about sex education. And actually, she's just written a book which is due out in the summer called Honest. And it's aimed at sort of teens, so 14 plus and young adults. It's a book that she probably would have wanted when she was younger because there was no sex ed at her girls' grammar school. And in fact, they got a lesson on the last day of sixth form. And the head of sixth form said to her, well, what did you think of that, Millie? And Millie said, well, that was great, but we should have had it in year 9. It was that.
Yeah.
And Millie gave out, samples of the organic lubricant on the last day. People started to realise why Millie was so knowledgeable about sex, because she kept it secret. People thought, her friends thought that we were spies, because Millie didn't ever talk about what we did for a living. So that was quite funny. So
that is hilarious.
but yeah, so the sex education, it's really important to have a young person talk about it. I mean, she's only 4 years out of school, and she's a freelance journalist, and she's worked for health websites and things like that. And she's passionate about this information and passing it on to people about their bodies, but also inclusive. So obviously completely LGBTQ plus inclusive, and making sure that nobody is left behind, that we're actually covering this conversation and educating people, whoever they are, whatever their sexual orientation and gender. It's really, really important.
Wow, what a tag team you both are. That's fantastic, because we know that young lads out there, there've been a lot of debate, a lot of articles, write-ups, political angst, parental angst about the role of pornography in the lives of young people, and all kinds of things that are going on there. I mean, your daughter and you are both doing amazing things, and your husband as well, as a family, to dispel some of the notions that young people are being fed via their smartphones about what sex is.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason why they're going to porn and they're educating themselves that way, not necessarily very well, I mean, there is some very good ethical porn out there, is because the sex education is very lacking in school. But this is a problem when you get political intervention, and rather than actually saying, well, let's teach these kids, rather than you end up with people saying, no, we can't possibly do that. And this is all down to parts of society, religious groups and political groups going, oh no, we couldn't possibly teach our children that. Well, yeah, this is really, really important that we do actually teach our children, because the research shows when we actually educate our children about sex, then they actually will delay their first encounter. Not everybody, but the vast majority will. They'll actually really think about it, and they will practice safe sex. But also sex is so much more than putting a condom on a banana. I don't know any penises that have, even in my nursing career, that look like a banana. So it's not realistic.
Come to think of it, I don't either.
Unless they've got really bad Peyronie's disease, and I never saw that when I was nursing. But
that it's still that level, isn't it, in high schools? And I'm thinking in my Canada days, high schools and public schools, grade schools, we called them grade schools in Canada. I mean, it is the banana and the condom, and this is how you do it. And then out in the schoolyard, the smartphones are out and they're watching porn, and they get this ridiculous version of what sex is like and how violent it can be on some of these websites that they can easily access. Most of the kids now, they know exactly how to access things that are supposed to be off limits.
And it's not just putting on a condom. When we talk about safe sex, it's preventing pregnancy, and we need to be talking about consent. Consent's a massive issue. We've got a massive issue with harassment, street harassment. Our daughter was harassed on the way back from school when she was 11. I witnessed that myself, and that was an everyday occurrence for her, but I saw it, and I took the boy, didn't take him out. I actually just said a few words to him. But she literally was 5 minutes, she walks 5 minutes from school, she changed her routine because of the harassment. So, and actually when you confront the schools, because it wasn't her school, the comments that a lot of us got back, some people said boys will be boys. Well, hang about. No, they won't. I've got boys.
Cannot
but also
bear that.
They're not interested in what goes on outside the school gates. And don't get me wrong, it was also girls doing things that actually putting them at risk. And also Millie would say to girls, well, you need to report that. And they go, oh no, because that's what they do. It's accepting of this behaviour. But the street harassment, going past schoolgirls and yelling at them. I mean, in this town, we've got five very big, sort of high schools and grammar schools. And I do think there's a bit of a melting pot where I live. But I think it's really frustrating. We've got to talk about consent, and everything about sex isn't just about preventing pregnancy. And we never talk about pleasure. Yeah, I remember my son saying they'd had to talk about masturbation and wet dreams, but my daughter never had a conversation talk at school about masturbation.
Oh well, women aren't allowed to have sexual pleasure in their lives, let's face it.
But actually young men want to know, they do want to learn about this, they want to become better. And if they're only going to see some stuff on pornography that isn't very good, and they'll think, well, I have to, and also some feel like they have to do those acts. And when you find out about it, they'll say, well, actually, I don't really like doing that. And they'll say, well, I don't like you doing it, because it's this communication that it's, I assume that I should do that. I
Yeah.
should have anal sex or whatever it is they're doing. Um, and, you know,
And as a
you often,
teenager having your first experiences, there might not be the open communication you would have in a more adult relationship. And there's so many different hormones and insecurities involved when you're in your teenage years and you are first maybe exploring sex. Because I know when I was younger, I had the same issues, but we didn't talk about it. But when you're 16, 17, and you've got a full time boyfriend and you're exploring sex, well, you wouldn't dare risk him not liking you, him not liking you less because you start demanding this or asking about that. You kind of presumed he knows what he's doing.
well, I did that. I've talked about, you know, I assumed that the people I was with when I was younger, they knew what they were doing. I never had an orgasm with a partner until I met my husband. You know, I'd give myself one, but he was the first person, you know, he gave me my orgasm. And I remember saying thank you because I'm very polite. You know, this
It's
is
cute.
really important, but this also then plays into adult life. We want them to make happy and healthy relationships. And if they don't have that basis to begin with, then it plays into adult life. And I hear all sorts of things through the work that I do. Things I often, some people have sort of, well, that's non-consensual. Really, you shouldn't, you know, you shouldn't be made to do that.
Sam, let's talk about sex and older people, people in the big middle years, let's say postmenopausal, 60s, 70s. What are you hearing out there from the people that you're helping? Because we've got, we read, usually it's somewhere in Florida, in some retirement village, and you read about no one's using condoms, and they've got all kinds of sexual diseases going on and infections and things. What are you finding out about that?
This is a really common conversation we have with people. So often people will phone up and they're in a new relationship. So I'm talking about 50 plus now, you know, so I've got my customers 50 to 93. And they're in new relationships and go, that's fantastic. But they may have found, you know, they want to buy a sex toy, they want to buy some lubricant, they may have found that they haven't had sex for a while, so sex feels a bit uncomfortable, so they want to buy a toy to help with that. And we say, and you are using condoms. And so many people go really quiet and they go, oh, but I can't get pregnant. Mm. But you can still get an STI. But also, you know, also people in midlife and in the menopause, people don't realize the tissues of the vagina and vulva are thinner. So therefore, you're at increased risk of transmission of sexually transmitted infections and HIV. You know, and certainly if you've got a dry vagina, so actually you've got tiny little cuts and abrasions, that just opens it up to the infection as well. So when we say to people, you know, it's really important that you use a condom. And I've had one said, oh, well, he didn't want to because he lost his erection. And it was like, well, you know, really, did you know what his sexual status is? There's, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
and also people don't know about STI testing. You know, I've helped people who've ended up with genital warts after a one night stand, utterly mortified, went to sexual health clinics surrounded by, you know, 25, 30-year olds, you know, and really felt out of place, and also felt like the staff weren't really quite sure what to do with her. You know, and she was really, really upset. It put her off dating. So, you know, we know now that this yesterday, I think it came to light from Terence Higgins Trust that we've got more heterosexual people are being infected with HIV and more late diagnosis because they're not going to sexual health clinics. They don't recognise symptoms. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not the gay community anymore. And also, I think with the gay community, obviously, they know they've got PrEP, you know, and they're actually more likely to go and have their sexual health tests, and they know that they can get home testing kits. So, home testing kits now are going to be available to everybody. But, you know, if you've been in a relationship for 30 years and then maybe your partner passes away, or, you know, you get divorced, and then, you know, you're then in a new relationship and you've not had to use condoms for years, then you're not going to think about them, are you? Or even think about, oh, I really should know about this sort of STI testing and really I should get checked. In fact, I did have a lady the other day and she said they'd both been checked. And I just thought, God, you're the first person
Oh, love
who said
that.
that to me. But she said, oh no, we both went and we both done STI tests, she said. And I
Oh,
just thought,
fantastic.
wow, I
Because in
was,
the age of internet dating, too, and it's so funny, you know how I was telling you that I canvassed all my friends? I canvassed a couple of guys, and they're babe magnets when they were younger, and they're just finding it impossible to meet anyone their own age. and they both don't want to go on the internet dating apps. And I said, well, there's where you'll probably find someone. But they're both saying they're not having sex. One is 62, the other one is 58, and they don't have a partner. And I mean, young women come onto them, and they're wondering, is that it? Is that the end of my sex life? Because the relationships they have with the women who fall into bed with them almost immediately after a few drinks fizzle, within 3 dates or 3 sexual trysts. But anyway, getting back to sex education, why do you think, Sam, in 2022, there is still so much cultural awkwardness and squeamishness around sex?
I find it frustrating because I talk about it in a professional but fun manner, as you can tell. And, we're often this whole salaciousness around it. Sex is everywhere. The sidebar shame on the Daily Mail, poor girl turns 16 and then she's just targeted by journalists, and it's shocking. And we have all this information, and yet people are still struggling. But it's actually trying to find the good quality information. I think, what I've achieved over the last 15 years is the fact I'm talking about it in a practical way, a fun way, a professional way. I'm telling you about this product might work for you, that product might work for you. Have you thought about trying this? But not doing it in a salacious, oh, I'm talking about sex toy. I find that utterly frustrating when I even see, sex educators or, doctors, and they're whispering vaginal dryness.
Yeah,
it's like, why are you doing down there? Why are you not
yeah,
actually
down
calling
there.
it
Talk
or
about your
vagina?
vagina and your penis, for
No,
heaven's
or,
sakes. It's
I got
ridiculous.
called out by somebody for saying we really should be using the right term. She called me a body fascist because I said we should be calling it vulva and vagina. You can call it whatever you want to, but as long as you know it's a vulva and a vagina and you can identify your body parts. And she used
But
the
a
word
lot of people don't know there's a difference, let's face it.
no, exactly. And so, she sort of called it the purple temple. She even wrote an article about it, which always
Oh
made
la
me
la.
laugh. It was like, gosh. But anyway, I think, and also with healthcare professionals as well, it's never part of my training. It's not part of medical training. I'd love to go into med schools and nursing, on nursing degrees and stand up with all my bits and pieces and just do a half-hour talk and saying, look, you need to be comfortable and confident talking to your patients about sex, and don't make assumptions that your 80-year-old is not having sex. Don't make assumptions about that 25-year-old because she's not having sex, she doesn't enjoy sex, she basically, why is she worrying about her sex life, because until she's not in a relationship. Don't assume people's sexuality, and sexual orientation. The woman standing there next to the woman who's just given birth, she's probably her partner. She's not her sister. It's these
Exactly.
assumptions that people make, and they're saying, I have people, doctors saying and nurses saying, oh, well, I'm too embarrassed to talk about it, and actually it's not my job. Well, whose job is it then? Oh, well, I send them to a psychosexual therapist. Well, there's massive waiting lists. They don't need that. You actually
Exactly.
need to be recommending a good lube. And also, if you are a healthcare professional doing a treatment like cancer treatments and gynae surgical interventions, and you're giving medication out, then you need to be able to talk about sex with your patients. And also, people who've been through prostate cancer as well,
Sorry.
urologists, you need to talk about sexual function, beyond saying use a bit of lube and that's it, send them away. I mean, some people aren't even told that. I'm amazed when people come to me and they've had breast cancer treatment and no one's spoken to them about sex. You know, so this needs to be a compulsory part of, certainly a compulsory part of cancer treatments. And obviously we work with a lot of cancer charities as well, who are amazing. And I do talks for cancer charities as
Well,
well,
these
to help.
cancer suppressant drugs, I mean, they do a number on the immune system and what happens sexually after breast cancer or after a cervical cancer
Yeah,
or any of the
well, it's
other
all,
cancers,
oh
gynecological
yeah, basically
cancers.
gynae cancers, breast cancer, bowel cancer, prostate cancer, the impact upon your sexual function. So be that, you end up with low libido, you basically, it's gone through your boots, you just don't have any libido at all. The vaginal dryness, the vaginal atrophy, the vaginal tightness, the scar tissue, the decreased sexual sensation. We never actually talk about that, but actually that happens too. And often, people who've gone through cancer treatment, some can't use hormone replacement therapy. But also for men going through prostate treatment, they're on these suppressant treatments, and that impacts upon their libido too. And also, their erectile function. And my frustration is, why can you not talk about this? I get frustrated when people say, oh, well, actually, I went to my GP and she said she was going to refer me back to my oncologist, and that was like 6 months ago. Well, why didn't your oncologist talk about it? You know, if you're you know, with cancer treatments as well, and often surgery, if somebody's having, you know, a complete hysterectomy, if you're whipping out somebody's ovaries, you need to talk to them about hormone replacement therapy. Don't leave them to go back to the GP who may not be confident about talking about this. This is part of treatment. But also, why is it so hard for you to recommend a good lubricant? Why are you telling them to use something that's really awful, or telling them to use a wash off the shelf in the supermarket? And, you know, you can hear my frustration
No, no,
because I
no,
get very
absolutely.
upset.
And I had a friend who just had a hysterectomy and she's been given absolutely no guidance. And I directed her to your website and sent her some other articles. And luckily, she was already on body identical
Yeah.
estrogen and utrogestin, the micronized progesterone.
Mm.
But she's going to get some testosterone now. And she is suffering vaginal atrophy, the after effects of this. And nobody warned her about this. And, you know, relatively recently, a few months ago, she had the hysterectomy.
Yeah. But I find it frustrating, and I get very upset when I often come off the phone and I say to Paul, you know, well, that was a 30-year-old and she was really, really upset. But no, she said to me, you've given me hope. I'm thinking, well, that's lovely. And I'm really glad I have given you hope. And I've told you, yes, this product will help and this lubricant help. But actually, have you had pelvic health physio? I can recommend one of our therapy. We work with some brilliant therapists. I can recommend them. You know, I'm always happy to give recommendations, or I can ask my physio Facebook group for recommendations. And you know, I talk about this holistic care. But I feel like, but why hasn't your doctor or your clinical nurse specialist talked to you about this? I, you know, I find it really upsetting when I hear about this. I think that, you know, it has to be part of care, and it isn't. But the whole, you know, healthcare professionals talking about sex, gosh. I work with brilliant healthcare professionals. We are so, so lucky at Joe Divine because they are the proactive ones. They've sought us out. I've knocked on many doors in the past and had them shut in my face. Quite frankly, if you don't want to know, then I don't want to talk to you, quite frankly. I'm not going to waste my breath trying to explain to you why using a good water-based lubricant like Sutil or Yes, or the oil-based lubricant is much better for you in menopause than using the silicone lube that you're recommending as a menopause doctor, you know, or your olive oil to use with dilators, which is a complete no-no. You know, or a doctor getting really, really upset because you've slammed a tiny little bullet vibrator in the hand and they can't turn it off. So,
Yeah.
you know, so that makes me laugh.
Yeah, and it's the
um,
patient who suffers. I
and
mean, it's just horrible because, and then where do they go? Well, they just crumple up and say, well, I guess I'm just going to, like the menopause, which is having its moment, now I'm going to suffer in silence. And I just have to,
well, and also I think a lot of them feel like they should be grateful for being treated, and they know, you know, what are you worrying about? You know, we've treated your cancer. I had a young woman, she'd had bone cancer. She was in early menopause, and I remember chatting to her, and she was probably about 23. And she said, yeah, I had the conversation with the doctor. He said, I didn't need to worry because I wasn't in a relationship. So she said, I said to him, but I have solo sex. And even if I'm not in a relationship, what if I wanted to go out and have casual sex, or, you know, meet somebody? And it, you know, we've got a lot more younger people being diagnosed with cancer, which is great because they are being treated earlier. So we have this younger demographic as well of young, you know, young people, and we need to be talking to them because they're just finding their relationships. They're just learning about their bodies, and wham, they've had a cancer diagnosis. They've gone through this treatment that may have sent them into early menopause, and it's like, you know, they're on a different scale to somebody who's sort of in a, you know, a long-term marriage, and they've gone through breast cancer. They've got their partner, but these
oh,
people
to
are
have
going
been a
through a
fly
different
on the
experience.
wall
And
in that doctor's surgery at that particular moment, because I can just imagine, judging from the attitude and the way you've presented it, he probably just went, what? Solo sex? What? One night stands? Wake up, Jack. You know, this goes
yeah,
on. People
or
have sex.
assuming people aren't having, well, and assuming people aren't having sex. The older people, you know, for goodness sake, let's stop assuming that they're not having sex. And also, don't wait for patients to ask you about sex. Sexual pleasure, sexual health and pleasure should be part of all these treatments that impact upon sexual function and sexual pleasure. Don't wait for the patient to ask you. I've got a friend who's a multiple sclerosis clinical nurse specialist, and she says there's no time, she said, really to talk about it. And yet we do help quite a lot of people who have MS. And she said, and it's often the hand on the door. She said, oh, by the way, and she's called Geraldine. She said, you know, yeah, and actually my sexual function. She said, and you're like, oh God, I don't have time to talk about this. There's no time has been created to talk about it. You know, and it'll be an afterthought. You
Right.
know, and then if for me, I want to make healthcare professionals confident talking about it and knowing that there are some really good products out there they can recommend that are pretty inexpensive, you know, because all this stuff can't be available on prescription. There's a website they can signpost their patients to. There's me they can signpost their patients to. And I know they're going to get really, really good advice. But it
You
is
said you had
changing. I
doors
think
slammed in your face, but I know you're giving a talk tonight to some health
yes.
professionals, right?
Yeah, so it's with Stock. They're a fantastic charity for young people with cancer. This is the second one I've done in-person events for them, panels as well, which have been really good. But it's to young people who've gone through cancer treatment and going through the menopause. So we're talking about people sort of in their 20s up to their 40s. Stock are great. They're so proactive. They're one of the, you know, all the cancer charities. We work with small cancer charities, because they tend to know their members. They tend to know the people that they're helping. A lot of the people who actually help out have cancer themselves as well. But you know, the bigger cancer charities, I find some of them have completely lost sight of who they're supposed to be helping. You know, we do work with a lot of Macmillan nurses, and they are absolutely brilliant. But I do think sometimes the information in the literature is quite poor. And if you're just handing that out with nothing to go with it, so Stock, yeah, I'm doing a chat tonight, and we've got a psychosexual therapist as well, and it'll be a fun and informative chat. But anything to help, you know, these young people reclaim their sex life and enjoy pleasurable sex. It's so important. And to hear have the feedback, it makes my heart sing when someone says, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. We use that lubricant to get out of bed all
And it was
weekend." Or
brilliant.
yeah,
Oh,
and you know, just to hear, you know, people saying, my 6-year-old saying, "I've had my first orgasm with your toy." It was like, yay! Sad you had to wait that long, but I'm really pleased you had one. You know, so
oh, you're doing such a load of good. And I just want to direct people to your Instagram, Sam Talks Sex. It's at Sam Talks Sex. And the other day, you put fun back into it. So the pleasure is not decoupled from the sexual health. I mean, you can join the two. It's fantastic. And you have not only have you had one where you're clearly doing something pleasurable below your neck, your head is back, and you're looking very happy. So you're probably giving yourself an orgasm. The other day, you had something where you said, "Did you realize that when you have socks on when you go to bed?" Tell me about that Instagram post with the stripy socks.
the research came out, I think, a couple of years ago about the fact of when you've got warm feet, then basically you're more likely to have an orgasm. So, you know, and that's true because I'm somebody who's always got cold feet as well. So I've got on a pair of socks, but I always have a hottie that I've warmed up in the microwave and put it at the bottom of the bed. So, but you know, simple. I mean, I'm not going to say you're not going to wear your socks during sex because the socks I was wearing are not particularly sexy. So, unless anybody's got a kink about stripy socks, I don't know. But you know, it's these little things that people didn't know. Even, you know, it was one that really surprised me. It was one I did about how to use your lube, because I suddenly realized, God, we're getting lots of emails from people who actually have bought this lube and they don't know how to use it. And to me, because I think people live in my bubble and they know the information that I know, and they know about ingredients and they know about skin safe toys. And actually, like with menopause, we live in a bubble, don't we? Because we assume that everybody knows about HRT and, you know, local estrogen, and actually we know that they don't. And you know, you have to sometimes break this stuff down. I've always done really long posts, and my articles are detailed. And actually now I started to do these really short posts. And I did a little reel yesterday about baby oil, and you know, don't use it as a lubricant. It's got so many views because people have shared it. But you know, some people might not know that you shouldn't be using baby
Loads of
oil.
people
So
wouldn't know. It's not common knowledge.
no,
Absolutely.
so
I mean, the thing is, there's that awkwardness and squeamishness and the lack of education. You know, we're back to the banana and the condom, and that's about it. And the body parts, and, you know, it's just the vagina. Nobody ever talks about the clitoris, the vulva. It's just astonishing that in this day and age, this isn't front and center, because people are having sex, but they're having it in ignorance a lot of the time.
I agree. And I also feel about, we talked about sex is everywhere, and then we've got these shelves of these products that are there, you know, people, the last parts of our bodies to be monetized, the vagina and the vulva. So these products are there for people to overcome these health issues that are impacting upon their sex lives, and yet we can't talk about sex. So, you know, for me, there's a real disconnection there, that, you know, these products, you know, any old thing, throw it at your vulva, stick it up your vagina, that'll be fine. And it's like, actually, no.
Yeah, well, it's a body
And
part, and it's an area that is being commercialized and commoditized, and even with the menopause now,
oh
everybody's
God,
jumping on. It's
it's on
ridiculous.
trend. It is, but it's a cash cow, isn't it? It's like the intimate hygiene industry. But yeah, menopause, people see pound signs, and some people are making an awful lot of money from it. And there's a lot of products out there that really, nobody should be using. You don't need them. And again, like with the sex advice, it's trying to sort the wheat from the chaff, and actually trying to find the good stuff that is evidence based, that is, has been clinically researched, and that it's come from a good, reliable source, to the stuff that is, potentially, not well, potentially harmful, I suppose, or actually ineffective. You're going to be peeing out, very expensive pee if you're taking all those supplements. So,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
but it's
Well, this
finding what works for you. I think that's with sex, it's finding what works for you, and what works for me might not work for you. And if people find the supplements work, even if it's a placebo effect, then I think, okay, you know,
yeah.
I,
We're
I'm
all
not going to
different.
dismiss it.
We're all the
Yeah.
same but different, as we know. Well,
Mhm.
listen, I can't thank you enough. Sam, you are going to be extending listeners and viewers to the Big Middle a discount and
Yes.
I want everyone to hit your site, because it's not just finding the right beginner toy or something better than you're using now, or dental dams, or any of these other things that you were talking about. It's the information. It's such a rich public health education hub.
Okay. So your code is the big middle, and it's a 10% discount code. I think it's a £15 minimum spend, not including P&P, and it's for a month. So if you
Okay,
type in that
fantastic.
code, you'll get your 10% discount. It won't be, you can't use it on anything that actually is already discounted. There might be a few products on the website, but obviously, go in there and have a look. And if anybody wants to call me or email me, or DM me on social media, then please do that. If you want any clarification, we're always happy to give advice. It's not just me. Paul gives advice too. He's been told he's got a lovely telephone manner. He often gives advice to menopausal women about the lubricants. He waxed lyrical about it, telling them we use it in our sex life. This is really important. And many people are fine. If you phone and you don't want to talk to a man, that's perfectly fine. I have, some of the men like to talk to me, or they like to talk to Paul. Some of the women are quite happy to talk to Paul, or they talk to me. So, we give a lot of practical advice on the
Bespoke
phone.
service, fantastic. And you ship globally, internationally?
No, we don't, not at the moment. And unfortunately, because of the madness of Brexit, we've had to stop shipping to the EU, which is frustrating. So, trying to get our heads around that. But hopefully, we'd like to ship to the US, but we're working on that. So it is only UK at the moment. So
Yeah, okay. Well, at any rate, go to joedivine.com and check out the blog Sexual Health. You'll find all kinds of information there and get you started on your way. And the skin safe element, all of the ingredients that you need to avoid, that's really important, because there's so much junk out in the supermarkets, on the shelves of all the drugstores, that thanks to you, Sam, we know we need to avoid. I can't thank you enough for coming on the Big Middle.
well, thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, that's what we want, don't we? Information and enjoyment when it comes to sex. Until next time, bye bye. Bye, Sam.
Bye.